And good morning, everybody. With Stacie Schlichtenmeyer, this is your next chapter, buying and selling real estate here in northern Indiana. I'm Balin Height, and Stacie, how are you this morning?
I'm doing great.
Good to hear. Good to hear. Last week we really talked about the buying process, the early stages, forecasting years down the road when you're looking to buy, maybe for the first time, or you're someone with a home looking to buy. I think the next logical step is selling, and in the season we're in right now, you're getting kind of a dose of both sides of that. It's busy time for you. There's so much going on in the real estate market, but overall, I guess if you could just kind of, I don't want to say a market update, but what's going on right now in your world of real estate?
So yes, it is very busy. Spring market is here. I was just sharing with you right before we started that I had a buyer client. We were going to go see a house tonight. I hit the market yesterday afternoon and it's already under contract. So depending on the price point of where you're at, that is very real. So it's super competitive.
I think that's very relevant to what we're going to talk about this morning because when you're selling your home, you have to be in a position to be ready. That's at the end of the day, you have to understand kind of where you're at in that process and be ready because it can happen just like you said, just like that. You can get the call and that's it. And there is a lot that goes into that. But the biggest thing, I think we want to start probably with the selling process, then get into the listing process because they are similar but different in a lot of ways. Let's look at the long-term window here. When someone comes to you and says, I want to sell my home or I'm looking to sell my home, what's kind of that first checklist or first conversation that you have with that person?
So when someone says that, I'm saying, that's awesome. Tell me more about that because there's generally a reason why. And so a lot of times they are those life events that we've talked about. And then it's, okay, let's sit down and make a plan. Because whether you are a month out, 6 months out, 3 years out, or it's never going to happen unless we still having a plan, it just sets you up for success.
I think if you have that plan, you can kind of wait that unless that one factor that kind of might hold you off from selling your home to go into that next home or go to that next chapter, whatever you're doing, downsizing, right sizing. I think if you have the plan, you're way less likely to run into a situation where you're going to have a holdup like that.
Sure, absolutely. So there's a lot that we can't control in a real estate transaction on all sides. So often we don't think about the bigger picture. We think about what affects us. So we're going to list our house, we're going to sell it, we're going to buy another house. The chances are someone that's going to buy that house is also selling a house and they're buying a house. Sometimes we are stacked 4 or 5 transactions together. And so when there are delays or there are bumps, because inevitably there's always something, a lot of different pieces are affected. And so having a plan, having great communication, just knowing what to expect next, I think gives people a lot of clarity and helps to reassure them during a pretty stressful time.
What are some ways that a seller can kind of alleviate those stresses as far as, so I'm putting myself in a seller's shoes. I think the stereotypical thing is when you're getting ready to sell your house, and we're going to say in a pretty controlled situation, because every situation is different, every scenario might be different for those life events that you just talked about. But let's say, I'm out, let's try to put myself in these shoes. I'm outgrowing my home. We've had our first child. Maybe we're getting ready to have that second one, or we're looking at, can we really make it work in the home or the situation we're in, and financially we think we're ready. I think, okay, I got to do some renovation. I got to make sure that, the paint looks in check, whatever that might be. The landscape looks good. Am I on the right track there, or am I missing some things? Is there some things in that conversation that I should be thinking about that I'm maybe not thinking about?
So I would say you're definitely on the right track there. When we're thinking about selling our house, it's first impressions and really marketing your home to the most amount of buyers. So if you have some kind of, very unique tastes as far as paint colors, that could be helpful. It is difficult sometimes for people to see themselves in a home that has a lot of expression, if you will, or like it's life, right? We live in our houses, we have family photos. You expect that. So when the time comes that, okay, now we're going to make that move, just being more mindful of any potential buyer, you want them to be able to walk in and feel comfortable. So yes, making those repairs, but a lot of times it is little things. I think sometimes sellers think like, oh, I've got to renovate that kitchen, or oh, I've got to do this, I've got to replace the roof. And while that may be beneficial, a lot of times it's not going to net you the amount of money that you've put in. And so that's why absolutely finding a trusted, local agent that knows the market that can come into your house and say, and then you say, okay, well, I'm looking at maybe redoing my kitchen. Well, do we know how much that costs? Because kitchens and bathrooms are expensive. Right now with materials, I mean, it's going to cost you 15, 20 grand to redo that. Are you going to be able to recoup that when you go to sell? And a lot of times the answer is no. So then what could we do, right? And so we could potentially maybe, instead of replacing all those cabinets, could we paint them? Could we change the hardware? And that's where having someone in your court, right? Someone that sees houses all the time, that knows these types of things, could potentially help you to save money on the front end, but then also be able to net a little bit more money, make your house, more appealable to that everyday buyer.
Yeah, it sounds like what you just said is you're saving us money,
Yeah,
right? Because
absolutely.
you're gonna come in that home and without that guidance, I'm probably gonna do that kitchen renovation, that bathroom renovation, whereas you may have just sold a house down the road or in the county, and you understand like, hey, no, like, look, I got a couple similar houses that have been on the market, sold this. This is kind of the timeline that we're looking at, and you're in good shape here. Just do these things, and that's going to save the seller a lot of money down the road.
Absolutely. And so often when we do these renovations, we do them how we want them, right? Like, of course, maybe that next buyer doesn't want that backsplash that you have picked out, right? They may not want the crown molding on the cabinets. And again, so appeal to the most amount of people. And if you're going to spend the money, spend it on the things that I would say maybe, all buyers are going to be more open to, right? If you're going to put $10,000 into your house, doing that to, upgrade the HVAC would be more beneficial in the long run than, maybe doing something specific in the kitchen or in the bathroom that maybe half the buyers may like.
Right. It's kind of those visuals and then the bones of the house and the backing and some other things that buyers are certainly looking at.
Sure.
So the selling process, so we've kind of established now where I'm at. I've done my renovations. I've gotten everything in check. I'm working with you, ideally. We talked about before we hopped on the mic, there's a very emotional part to selling. And along with emotions come maybe an established price or what you feel like the home might be valued at. I think, sitting in my chair looking at what you have to do as the agent, maybe the hardest conversation with the seller is a realistic price that's going to get them the best offer. And is that kind of that next logical step when you get to the listing process with the seller, and what is that conversation like?
Yes, I would say 100% setting the appropriate list price is one of, if not the most important thing, really the expectation with your seller. And so being open, like if they have a price in their mind, I don't want to discount that or discredit that. There's a reason. And so I really want to talk about that. And a lot of that can come back to motivation, but asking really good questions and then being transparent. And we do, I have hard conversations every single day in real estate. And you just have to be okay with that. And so, again, looking at yourself as a professional, and I'm not the emotional person in this situation. And sometimes it is very difficult. And I understand that when someone's going to sell a house, it is so much more than selling their house. It is selling sometimes 5, 10, 20 or more years of memories. I have a seller right now that they've had the same house in their family for 59 years. There's so much more than that house that's being sold there. And so just meeting those clients where they're at and helping them a lot of times too, and letting them know you're not alone, right? And so I think so often people just don't realize that those emotions, all of that is going to come up, and it is super taxing. We're talking about the 3 most stressful things, in our world, and one of them is moving. And I mean, that is one of the reasons for sure, is everyone is doing life outside of buying and selling a house. And so life is busier than ever. I think we can all agree to that. So then when you take one of the most stressful things, and then families and everything else that we're doing, no wonder why, for a lot of people, they don't make a move, not because they don't need to or want to, because they feel so stuck. And so I want to be able to help them to confidently move to the next chapter.
Yeah, and I think that's something that you've established you do really well, and there is an honesty about your guidance, and I think that's what really stands out to me with this selling process, is just being able to get them out of that rut and put them in a situation where maybe 6 months after they've sold their home, they're in their new living space, they're saying, wow, that was awesome,
Mhm.
or that was way easier than I thought it was.
Mhm.
I'm so glad we did this, because I think that's very much a part of this process. And as we're talking more and more, I think we can almost hold off on kind of that offering process of what
Mhm.
that looks like when you actually do sell the
Mhm.
home, because there is so much. But before we do go, Stacie, is there anything that in this part of the home selling process that maybe I've missed or I haven't been able to bring up, or anything you wanted to specifically talk about, and kind of your experiences that you've been able to go through recently, especially?
Yeah, I would just say that when you're looking to sell your house, whether it's now or a year from now or more, starting to keep an eye out of other houses right in your area that are selling. What are they doing? Right, go to those open houses, because when you do list your home essentially is competition to any other home that's similar to that on the market. And again, you have one shot at a first impression, and I work with a lot of buyers. We walk into a house, it takes them seconds usually to go, oh yeah, this is the one, right? So when there's not a ton of inventory, I think a lot of times, people will think like, oh, I know it'll sell right away, and that very well may be. But again, having that plan, because then what happens? Do you have a house to go to? And that's a huge, huge struggle for a lot of people, is feeling like they don't have somewhere to go to. But then, yeah, just really helping people to be informed, because even when we do, list the house, then we do a lot of work on the front end, but still listing the house is kind of the beginning, right? We're just kind of starting that process. And so there's a lot of communication, a lot of going on. So for me, I really want to set expectations for the seller, because again, unless you sell homes all the time in this current market, it is so different. And that's one thing that the real estate market is changing so rapidly. We do this all the time. Like, I understand what that communication is like, and what the day-to-day is. And so often, sellers, they just don't know. And so I think that that's where a lot of kind of uneasiness can come in. And two, I mean, we're so used to going into so many houses, right? Like, that's such a personal thing for people. So I always let my sellers know, like, I'm going to treat your house like I would treat my own. Like, again, we want to make sure that it's secure and that everyone's, being respectful. There's just so much of that I never really thought too much about getting into real estate. And you just realize, like, these are people, these are their lives, these are their homes. And I know for myself, like, that's about as personal as it gets.
Yeah.
So it's very important.
Yeah, very invasive process.
Yeah.
When you just listening, you kind of like, yeah, you're right.
Mhm.
Stepping through that, going through it. Yep, yeah, that is invasive. But it's important to have someone like you who's got that compassion, got that ability to be able to treat it like their own home, and ultimately get everybody into their next home, sell their current home, get that best situation possible price wise, and set those expectations. Stacie, I know you've been very busy working on the new office here in downtown Warsaw, so we're very excited for that. But if people have questions about selling, listing, buying, all the things with real estate, even some estate work as well,
Sure.
how can they get a hold of you?
So the best way to get a hold of me would be my cell phone. My number is 574-334-7105. You could also email me at Lake City Stacie, and that's STACIE, lakecitystacie@kw.com. And we are now on Buffalo Street. We have a nice new sign. Come check it out. It's 212 South Buffalo, and we're having a ribbon cutting at the end of the month. So we're super excited.
We'll chat about that next week. We'll also chat about listing, kind of that offering process when you're juggling multiple things after you've got your house ready to be sold. But it's a learning experience for me every week. Stacie, you're so knowledgeable. It's great to have you in here, and we appreciate your time this morning.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Balin.
That's Your Next Chapter with Stacie Schlichtenmeyer as we continue on our coverage here on News Now Warsaw. We'll chat with you next weekend.